Hello, welcome to the Reframing Mindset podcast. We are clear my head of the thoughts that are preventing clarity and practice my speech, among other things. Episodes range from informative knowledge to funny stories about my experiences, and in the future, maybe include interviews. So subscribe and enjoy. Episodes drop every other day. Okay, now welcome back to Reframe Mindset podcast. My name is Constant Brooks. I know this episode, you know, it's like a funny throwback episode to another high school experience. I know because of the job that I'm working at now, I'm doing a lot of talking and listening, and I have to go back to one of the subjects I usually do in high school. And a funny thing that happened while doing that course, when doing that subject. So the subject is called communication studies, and basically what that is was a more advanced English, a more advanced English. So during the lower level of high school, we do English language and English literature, which is basically English language is just basically learning basic English, um, the basic stuff you learn in English, adjective and all those simple stuff. And English literature will be learn how to read books and analyze them, reading like story novels and such like that, analyze them. And then you have communication studies now, which is more like an advanced version of English. So you don't really, because what if you're listening to the podcast, if you're one of those fans that listen from way early, that listen to my um the come up how I actually got my degree. That's how the early episode was. Me talking about how I got my degree, the experience from then. From grade 12 aspect in the grade 12 episode, that's where I did communication studies, you know. And what that basically was like we were focusing more on communication, and so speech and listening, those were kind of two main stuff that we did that was not really in English. In English was focused more on comprehension. The communication studies was more on focused on communication, but it was still mostly English. So I guess the story what I want to talk about is the exam. So if you know, the two main big exams that we do is called for each university will be called CXC and CAPE. CXC and CAPE. So that's like the two exams that everybody in the country will take just to determine if they're going to go to university or they can use that the grade that they get to get a job certain places. So that's the qualification that we use. So the CAPE now is like the upper level, like the advanced version of the CXC. It's more harder and such like that. And I'm doing CAPE communication studies. It was mandatory that you do it. Alright, so can't really advance to the 13th grade. So basically, we're in the so how the exam was is that they have a listening portion of the exam. So the listening portion is that you're going to the one of the invigilators is going to read a passage, and based while she's reading, we have the the paper, the exam paper with the questions on it. And based on what she's reading, we should write down notes or such like that to answer to answer the questions on the paper. So we don't have any, and we don't get to look at the book or such like that. We just have to listen to the the person that is speaking and jot down notes as they go. so your ears, your listening ability has to be good. Has to be good. And bro, I was like I was a terrible listener. I was a terrible listener. But I had hope that I could actually do well. So that was the hope that I went into the exam. So when I went to the exam now, one of my basketball teammate was sitting close because, as I said, it's everyone in the school that is doing the exam, and every class it was a mandatory course. So even if you're not in my class, you're doing the exam as well. So we weren't in the same class, but we were doing the exam as well. And because our last name was kind of close, well, not really close, but it was really at the end. So we were placing alphabetical order, and our last name was at the end. We were kind of close in proximity to each other. And this was like a main exam. So cheating and all those stuff were basically not allowed. You can't really go there. That was so the exam started now, and this person now, if you listen to one of the early episode, I guess I could give you a clue as to who he was. He was really good at English. He was really well. I would say he was good at English. Right? Should I say yes? He was good at English, but it was inevitable. If he wasn't good at English, it would be it would be a disrespect to disrespect to it would be like a failure, a family failure, you know. It would, yeah. Or it would be a slight on the examiner, you know, because what I said, how did this guy fail English, you know? How did this guy fail English? If he failed English, that means that none of us basically know English because this guy speaks English his whole life. You know, so but you know, we're back in the exam. We're back in the exam, and the reading portion is there. And this, so the lady now starts to read, and what happened is that it's like for next approximately to around 50 persons in the room, 50% in the room, and the class is split up in 25 and 25, and the exam room is split up in 25 to 25, and this lady is in the middle of the room just basically reading at the bottom of her voice. Like legit, she was using the mic, but the mic was barely she was barely talking in the mic. She was barely speaking in the mic. The mic was low. And it's like, wow, wow. This after really try to listen to this, and this person is saying, okay, she's going to only read this passage twice. I'm like, what in the world? And then basically after she finished reading, we have like 30 minutes to actually finish the exam. And it's like, oh my god, bro, oh my god. So yeah, the first time she read it, I got a few answers and I jot them down. It's like, okay, I got something. I got something. Then the second time she went around, she read some stuff and I got something, but it wasn't enough to answer all of the question. And what happened was that after she finished now, I basically was like, okay, let me just actually fill in the answer that I know. I barely got anything. I was looking at people, I was like, yo, I failed. I legit failed because I barely could hear anything that this lady is saying. And when she's talking, the little that I hear, I was too slow to actually write it down. So it was a L. It was a L the whole time. So basically, I'm sitting there looking at this paper and said like, wow, I'm going to fail this exam. And I was contemplating how life will go after failing this exam, you know, thinking about how I'll actually progress in life and thinking about, oh, maybe should I apply to another school or maybe actually go to work. You know, so that was what I was thinking about. Because I'm saying like, yo, it's a L. And then what happened was I turned around. So it was time to It was coming close to when they were going to collect the paper. And I turn around and I see the teammate, the basketball teammate, and then he saw me and he could see my face that he could see my face that yo, I was going to fail this thing. I was going to fail this thing. I said, yo, I seen it. But like I said, he was supposed to be good at this, you know. So what he did was he just slightly turned the paper so I could see some stuff. And I had to just take it. I had to just grasp as much information as I could and then just jot it down and then boom. Because if not, I was going to fail. Yeah, so I got some stuff. Like legit, he could see the suffering on my face. He could see the suffering on my face. Like, yo, I feel the pain, bro. I feel the pain. Let me try to help you out. And when I came out the exam, we started talking about it. Yeah, the teammate couldn't stop laughing, bro. He couldn't stop laughing because he could see it. Yeah, it's like he said my face looked like I was constipated, you know. It was like, yo, I was going to die in that exam because I couldn't I barely hear anything. Like legit a listening exam. Like, yo, it's one of those things where I hate about this life, bro. The test is just so random. So random. And it's like well, listening exam, you know, you can't really make this up. You can't really make this up. Why in the world would we do a listening exam? I understand the value of it, but bro, they have to really do. It's not. I guess the problem wasn't the listening exam. The problem was that the day of the exam, it was so sloppily read. Like this lady didn't care if we heard anything or not. She was talking like she doesn't want us to hear it. That was what I got from that exam. She was talking like she doesn't want us to hear. They want us to get as low as grade as possible. That's all she was talking because it wasn't me alone that had the problem. But I ended up pass the course. You know, it wasn't the best grade, but it was like a 50% or a 60% pass. You know, so but it's up still a pass in my book. You know, so I couldn't complain. Yeah, but that episode. This episode just came to me since the job that I'm doing now. It relies a lot on communication and my ability to listen. So it's it's funny how I guess in my life now all those stuff that I actually learn in theory are actually becoming key stuff that I have to actually know how to do and not either learn how to do or those stuff that I learned in high school are actually going to start be refined through experience in the real life situation. We are applying those skills. I guess this is one of the new ones now, listening and communicating. Because it's the job that I'm going to do. I have to be able to listen to the customer and solve their problems. Yeah. And no, I understand the value of the ability to do that because if I'm able to refine that skills, my ability to communicate will drastically increase. And for example, this podcast will drastically increase because and stuff like that. So the ability to communicate is going to be vital. So yeah, I guess this future episodes will be me starting to contradict my younger self. So all those stuff like how you just thought they were both in foolishness and like, yeah, we don't actually need that. And it doesn't really make sense why I'm going to do that. They're going to hear me come in a future episode and be like, yes, yes, I'm actually going to do this because I see the value of it now. And yeah, so that's all the future episodes going to be. You're going to hear me say, did this guy just basically rebuke this few episodes back? Yeah, I did. I know I changed my mind because that's what this life is what the going progressing more in life does. It forces you to actually change your ways of doing stuff. Hmm. So basically, for this episode, I guess it should be a light episode to let us lighten up the mood. Yeah. So that's it, and look forward for the next episode. All right.
Well, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for watching and look forward for the next episode. To support this podcast, go to anchor.fm/cssb/support or become a sponsor for this episode. If you have a product that you want to have more exposure, DM me on the Instagram page, Reframing Mindset Podcast, or on Twitter at ReframingP. Either way would help. Thank you regardless for listening, and here's a preview for the next episode.
The fourth week. Yeah, because I actually finished the fourth week now. The recording of this episode. I've been employed. Wow. I actually made it to a month of being employed. That's wild. That's wild. But the last if you listen to the third week episode, you'd have learned that it sounded a bit more upbeat. Like I was seem excited and like yeah, they make it seem good. This week was different, bro. This week was like yeah, we're getting down to business. We're getting down to business. That was what it's like, yeah. It's getting officially employed, all this stuff. And the thing about it that it's because we're actually not employed yet. We're just in training. We're just in training. So basically, what was happening was that we were getting all the tools